Hey there, horror movie tea sippers.
The following podcast will contain spoilers for the movie we are about to review. If you have not seen the movie and do not wish to have anything ruined prematurely, then please do not continue to listen until after you have seen the movie.
And welcome to the Horror Movie Tea podcast. And today we are covering 28 Days Later. 28 weeks later was a request, but we have to do things in order. So we decided to do 28 days.
We realized that we hadn't seen 28 Days Later in forever, if at all. I believe this was actually my first time watching this movie. I'm not sure about you, Alyssa. But I don't remember any of this movie. So this was my first time watching it. But it gives us a good idea, a good backstory for when we watch the next one.
Yeah, I barely... I remember bits and pieces of this movie, so I don't know if I actually watched it or if I was hearing someone review it or show video clips. I don't know. But to start off...
But we've seen it now.
Yeah. To start us off, I am drinking green tea with lemon flavor and ginseng, and I am using a dinosaur mug. How about you?
Meanwhile, I'm sitting here with my I don't give a sip mug with Bigelow's Earl Grey tea with bergamot.
Ooh, one of your favorites. Mm-hmm. Oh, and so for those who are listening, we are now doing video podcasts. So if you would like to see our faces, then you can head on down to YouTube. We are Horror Movie Tea, just as we are on Podbean and all the other platforms. So yeah.
It'll have our icon and everything. Can't miss it.
And though just a fair warning, I'm pretty much uploading the raw footage. So if you want a clean and pristine podcast experience, then please proceed with the normal podcast listening. But if you don't care and you just want to see a friendly face because you've been in quarantine for too long, then we're here. But so to give you guys a rundown of the movie, it's your typical zombie infection type of movie where there's a breakout, and in this particular case, the main character wakes up from a medically induced coma, and the world is empty. He's walking around the city. There's no one there. He ends up coming across some zombies, and these two people end up rescuing him. And he joins their group, and it's just following the characters. Like, they end up going to, like, a military base, and then they move on to trying to get rescued on their own. So I know we're going to talk about it, so I'm not going to go too much into detail, but for those who have seen the movie and need a very quick refresher, hopefully that's enough detail for you.
They're surviving an infection.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So for the entertainment scale, how would you rate this movie?
I give it about a 5. It was alright. It was, I'd probably not remember most of the movie in a few months, but it was good. While we were watching it, it's a bit older. It's a 2002 movie. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it shows a little. But otherwise, it was decent. There's some holes, which we'll get into in a couple minutes, but otherwise it was alright. It was a little bit more different than most of the other zombie infection type movies that we've watched.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would give it a 5. I'll be honest and say I'm not a huge fan of zombie movies. I mean, I do like the originals, the classics.
I love them.
But yeah, the main reason why I enjoy zombie movies isn't really the zombies themselves. Though it is kind of cool to see the different variations and ideas, even though they're most of the time pretty much the same. But the character development and how they handle, like, this movie, one thing I enjoy about it is it seems that a lot of zombie movies, it's just the worst of humanity. Even like the survivors are just pieces of shit. But but in this movie, you know,
the optimists die.
But in this movie, you got to see both sides of the coin.
Yeah, that is true. They did have several different kinds of people, and they did show how they all cope, because they do cope differently. The main guy's an optimist, and he's a little naive, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, he's walking around the hospital and the ghost town of a city and yelling out, "Hello?" when he sees all this, like, destruction and all. I'm sorry, sweetie. Red flags everywhere.
Yeah.
Why are you yelling out?
He's like, this is fine.
Whatever badness is out there is going to come get you and eat you. Stop.
Well, and then plus, like, even if he didn't know about the infection, it looks like a war zone.
Yes.
And so you don't know who finds you.
Enemies.
Exactly. You don't know if they're friend, foe. Like, would you even risk that? Like, I wouldn't.
No.
Yeah.
No. And then the main girl is, a lot of people would probably call her a pessimist. I would call her a realist. She was very, very practical, very clinical with a lot of things, and very logical. So she comes across as cold a lot of the time, but it is very rational and reasonable to think the way that she does. So I liked her.
Yeah, I did too.
I liked her. The dad that they found, Frank, he is an extrovert. He, like, did not hesitate to save them on the staircase when he saw them running from some infected. He invited them into the house automatically, like, no questions asked, gave them a place to stay. Heck, he's probably the one that rigged up the lights in the apartment to signal to other survivors that there were people there.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
he was very, very much an optimist and an extrovert, and he put way too much hope on that radio message that they had found.
Yeah.
On their wind-up radio. The one that broadcasts to anyone on that frequency that there was a kind of a settlement or a base of survivors with soldiers, that they have found the answer to the infection, and salvation is here. Make it to our base. We have food, we have shelter, we are protected, there are no infected here. The generic come hither message in a zombie movie, basically.
Yeah.
And when they got to the location that the message said to go to, it looked abandoned. And he was very, very upset and ended up getting infected because he was so upset and wasn't thinking rationally. He did try to protect his daughter when he realized that he was infected.
Yeah.
But he put way too much hope on it, honestly. Like, the rest of them knew it was kind of a long shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was... And the soldiers that they did find were awful. Horrible human beings. So...
Yeah, the worst of humanity, for sure.
There was one soldier that seemed to have pretty decent morals and had some good points. Like, he had noticed planes flying overhead and all, so he's like, this isn't everywhere. This thing hasn't gotten everywhere, because if it had, everywhere would have shut down just like we did.
Yeah.
So there is life out there. We're basically in quarantine in our country. They've cut us off, basically. And of course they didn't listen to him.
Yeah. But, yeah, I was pretty frustrated whenever the dad died, because it was just the most basic.
I saw it coming.
I know. It is
a bit cliched.
Yeah.
It is a bit cliched.
Well, plus, since the soldiers come, like, minutes after, well, if not even seconds after he gets infected, it's just, but oh well.
I'm telling you, I'm pretty sure they were observing them.
Maybe. That would definitely make the most sense. But then it also makes we find out later that they're shitty human beings, but at least at that particular moment, they were coming to rescue them, essentially. So it's like, why would they wait and observe them when they can obviously tell they're not zombies? They're not, like, it's obvious when they're infected.
They might have been discussing it on the radio that there were 2 females with them and 2 males. And then one of them got infected, and they're like, oh crap, he's gonna attack the females that we want.
That would make so much more sense, and that is disgusting.
Well, I mean, it's kind of what we were talking about during the movie. So I know you guys weren't hearing our antics and shenanigans while we watched these movies. But I always think about, in these kind of movies, what would I do in this situation? And there is a pretty common thing in a lot of these movies, and logically it does make sense. With an infection like this, or like The Walking Dead, or any other zombie movie ever, it becomes a very uncivilized world.
Yeah.
And the emphasis is put on not just survival, but really what it comes down to is I would not want to be in that situation as a girl.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the females are often told that they'd be cared for when they do find a group, but then they're basically kept there as prisoners and used horribly. So it's just not a good situation. And throughout this whole movie, as they were like heading towards the location for the settlement and all, I'm sitting here like, I am worried about these 2 girls. This does not sound good. This does not sound promising. I have concerns. Like, this is not a good thing. And then they get to the settlement, and everywhere they go, it's like a sausage fest. There's all men. And I'm sitting here, yep, this is a bad place.
Yeah, you did call it.
This is a very bad place. This is not a good thing. Yes, I understand that a lot of times the women would be... Not a lot of women would survive, I feel like. And that's just... A lot of it is due to biology. Like, yes, we tend to be smaller than men and not as strong. And even running speeds. Men on average tend to run at least 2 miles per hour faster than women do.
Yeah, and just to clarify, note that she's saying on average. So, of course, there's going to be exceptions to the rule. There's going to be
exceptions everywhere.
Yeah, there's going to be men weaker than women, women stronger than men. It just, it's just your baseline average. Yeah.
Just on average, biologically speaking, women tend to be smaller and physically weaker than men. Now, a lot of times we tend to be emotionally stronger, depending on the situation.
Well, I think that's also like a societal construct.
It really is. But in a situation where society breaks down and everything boils down to physically surviving, it's gonna be a little difficult for most women to survive. It is. Unfortunately, that's how a lot of it's gonna be. So, I get it. Women are going to be more rare, more than likely. But that means that bad situations like this occur.
Well, I also have to wonder if I don't necessarily think. I mean, physical strength is definitely something to not argue against, but I think it'd probably be the less intelligent people, no matter what their gender is, would probably be more of the first ones to go, or the ones that are so
Probably
emotionally weak that they can't handle it, and they're like, I got it. I can't
definitely.
do this. Yeah.
I definitely agree with that, but at the same time, you can be the smartest person in the world, but if you can't run for a certain distance to get away from the thing that's chasing you, at least until it's distracted, or you can find a vehicle to get away, or another mode of transportation, then you're kind of screwed.
I think it kind of depends on what resources are available.
Yeah.
But
really, you need a good combination overall of intelligence and physical strength.
Yeah.
And endurance. Endurance is going to be one of the biggest things. Your stamina
Yeah.
is going to be one of the biggest things.
Which humans, even if we aren't very physically fit, humans, we're biologically programmed to have better endurance than a lot of animals, because that's literally how we survived back in the good old days, or just the old days. They weren't so good.
Before technology and everything. Yeah, no. We are endurance creatures. We're not really built for short bursts of really, really, really big speeds.
Yeah.
The hunters and gatherers would basically walk a lot of their prey to death.
Yeah, just follow them for days until they're just so exhausted, and they're like, yay, free meal.
Now we can pick them off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need a good balance. You can't do stupid things in movies like this, like call out hello and make a whole bunch of noise when you don't know what's going on. Like, I know print newspapers are on their way out, mostly, but
In
they're
2002,
still
just to
around.
clarify. Yeah.
They're still around, especially in 2002. They're still around. So, find a newspaper. There's gonna be some kind of headlines somewhere. We saw a couple flapping around in the street.
Yeah, it said an evacuation, I think. I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah. And he did pick up that one that said evacuation. But we saw a couple others that had, like, images of fires and rioting and all. So, they're around. He just wasn't using the resources. Or find a working computer if you can. There were some areas that still had power. So, find a working computer, get on the internet, look on there for the headlines, for news in your area. There's going to be some kind of information available. But, I don't know. Again, there were a lot of holes with this movie. The biggest one that I found was the incubation time.
Yeah.
They made mention a couple of times that you have between 10 to 20 seconds if someone is infected to kill them before they Hulk out, basically. They become a rage monster and try to kill anyone that they come into contact with.
Yeah.
Kill or infect. Because a lot of times they would, like, spit blood right at people.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely seemed like they were programmed to pass along the infection rather than, like, eat
Which
them.
is common. Which is very common in a lot of these movies. I did find it interesting. This one was a little bit different. They weren't technically zombies because they didn't die and come back. They're not rotting corpses walking around and all like World War Z or Walking Dead or anything like that. They're actual living people that are infected by this pathogen.
Mm-hmm.
And so they do starve to death. They can starve to death. They can, logically speaking, they would die of dehydration before they starved. But we don't know if they were getting water sources or anything. They didn't really focus that much on the infected. But they did mention that they were also in New York and Paris. How?
Yeah, those are both very far.
Very far from England. I mean, Paris is closer, but there's still water there. They're on an island. Britain is an island. How the hell did they get to another continent?
But one thing that you mentioned that definitely hit home is you said it was essentially a form of rabies in overdrive, and I totally picture that. And for those who don't know, rabies is still extremely deadly to humans. Mm-hmm. And so if...
It's a much longer incubation time, though.
Yeah.
A few months.
But if you got it, you're done.
Yeah.
So it would definitely make sense that it would be something along those lines where they can't find a cure.
Now, with rabies, there are shots that you can get pretty soon after.
Yes, that's true.
You'll be fine. But you do have to take that shot within a certain amount of time, otherwise it's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
But again, how did they get to 2 different continents with an incubation time of 10 to 20 seconds?
Well, okay, so since you're bringing up realism stuff, let's go ahead and move to the realism scale. So since I know you're about to go on a tangent, as far as the realism scale goes, like as far as how the humans were acting, I felt like there's a mixed bag. Not everyone was acting the same, which is, pretty realistic.
Yeah, that I agree.
I do disagree with how the infection, like how contagious it was, and as you said, how far it spread. So I think, give it a 4.
Yeah, I agree. I'd give it a 4. The people's reactions to the situation were pretty accurate. And a lot of the defenses that they showed in the movie, from shopping carts to barbed wire to tripwires and landmines and all that's reasonable. That was pretty accurate. Their reactions were pretty good and understandable. How far and how fast the disease spread, that's kind of a no. And also, in the very, very beginning of the movie, how the disease gets out is they were trying to understand how a virus works so they could create a cure for it. And they had infected chimps so they could study it and how it works and spreads and things like that. And these activists had broken in and were taking pictures and were trying to free the animals. And they were dumb and didn't listen to the doctor. Granted, the doctor had horrible communication skills. Horrible communication skills. They asked him point blank, what are they infected with? And all he says is rage. Sweetie, tell them it's a virus. If nothing else, tell them it's a virus, a highly contagious virus that causes severe aggression and homicidal tendencies. It's not difficult to get all of that out. They were clearly waiting for a logical explanation or a good answer.
Yeah, they would listen.
So...
But no, he just had to say, it's rage.
Yeah, no, it's rage, and then he just leaves it into that. So they stood there for like a couple seconds and were like, Yeah, okay, now we're gonna open the cages. So then they die. But where was the security that the doctor had called? Where were the extra precautions that those places are supposed to take?
I know.
And they broke in. I feel like they broke in fairly easily. Like, their security was shit. If you'll forgive the language. Their security was awful. So, I feel like it's kind of their own fault that it got out. A virus that highly contagious and aggressive should have had a lot more security precautions in place.
Yeah, for sure.
So even if someone had managed to break in to get all of this information and pictures and things like that, it should have been contained. The building itself should have been locked down and contained, so it didn't go any further. So not sure how they messed that one up so bad. I also feel like there would have been more bodies everywhere, especially in, like, the hospital.
Yeah.
He was walking through the whole place, and there was a lot of, like, stuff knocked over and everything, but we didn't see any blood or bodies the entire time he was walking through.
I think they were maybe trying to allude to whenever he very first meets a zombie, so it was more of a surprise. But yeah, as far as realistic wise, I totally agree. But
Yeah.
movie's got a movie.
Yeah, it does. It does. But that's why I give it a 4.
So if we were in this situation, I get my answer is a lot shorter than yours, I'm sure, because you just think about these things way more than I do. I would definitely get preliminary supplies and have weapons after backup weapons. But I would, it's a balance. Like, I want to be able to have the items I need in a bag I can carry, but I don't want it to be so heavy that it encumbers me and it'll slow me down. But as far as, like, if I were to hunker down in a building, I'd honestly try and find a place with, like, a basement and just essentially barricade the basement door. But I might be. What would you do?
So I wouldn't go for a basement. Just because you're in a box with no other exit.
This
usually.
is true. This is true.
But
it also bottlenecks them.
One. Yeah, but many only have one entrance and exit. Maybe 2, but they're not very defensible. Like, the one to the house or the building might be defensible, but the one that generally leads out to the street or outside directly is usually not that defensible. And if you barricade that completely, if you lose the rest of the house, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't really go for, like, a basement. I'd go for an easily fortified and defensible place, preferably somewhat near a town or city, but not too close to it.
Sounds like 7 Days to Die all over again.
A little bit. There's a reason why I choose these places in those games.
Yeah, if you guys want to learn how to live through a zombie apocalypse, play 7 Days to Die.
There's a great game on Steam called 7 Days to Die, and it is a zombie survival game.
It's glitchy as hell, though, FYI.
It can be. It can be. I think your computer is just a toaster, though.
But it is still an alpha, you know? They never... Yeah.
Okay, but it's been in an alpha status for a few years.
Yeah, and they can make it better, and then...
They have. They've had update after update. I'm pretty sure your computer's a toaster. But anyway, you do need provisions, and if possible, the location that you select should have an area that you can designate for growing food. Because you can only scavenge so much, and that stuff is only going to stay good for so long. So you're going to need another source of food. You're going to need a water source, preferably running water, so near a stream or river.
So it's cleaner.
And yes, you don't need that many clothes. Just some really well-made ones.
Yeah.
And weapons. Melee are going to be some of the best ones. They're going to be quiet and easy to carry most of the time. And they're going to be the most accessible. They're not going to run out of ammo. They might break, but they're not going to run out of ammo.
Yeah.
You will need range for backup. So I'd have a stash of bows and arrows for hunting and just for sniping things.
Do you think...
I have roof access.
Do you think that doing a lot of melee weapons, though, would also make you more vulnerable?
It can, but it depends on the situation and the type of melee weapon. If you're in a tight space, knives are going to be the best.
Yeah.
Because you can't exactly swing. Well, if you can, but in some closed spaces, you're not going to have a whole lot of room to swing a bat or a machete.
Yeah.
So it all depends on the situation that you're going into.
I guess with the knife, you could, like, stab them in the eye, and that'd go into their brain, and just... You'd hopefully wear... Yeah, you'd hopefully wear, like, gloves or some sort of thick arm protection to reduce the risk of being bit.
If you're going out, duct tape is going to be one of the best resources, by the way.
Strong.
If you're going out, you need to pad your arms and legs. So even if they get through your clothing, they're not going to get to your skin. You might get some bruising, but if they don't break the skin, then you're much more likely to survive. So like thick magazines and things, if you're able to duct tape them onto your arms and your legs, like your calves and your forearms, those are going to be some of the biggest areas. The elements are going to be a big thing, because exposure will kill you just as easily as a wound will. You would need to raid some kind of pharmacy or vet or something to have antibiotics on hand, just to help with any infections or anything that might come along. And also, one of the first things that I would be doing once I'm at a good location and have enough time to do so is I would be getting rid of my hair and biting my chest. So when I go out, if nothing else, I'll look close enough to a guy that I might be able to kind of skate on by and not get, kidnapped. Because I am small. I'm feisty, but I'm small. And, I mean, apart from other projectile weapons that are quiet, like a bow or crossbow, a gun would be helpful. Just make sure if you have multiple guns, it's best to have the same kind of ammo or a very common type of ammo.
Yeah.
That way when you do have to go out and try to get more, it's more easily accessible. It's easier to find.
Agreed.
I think about this too much.
Yeah, I'm actually really curious. How would you guys survive a zombie apocalypse? With everything going on, it honestly has kind of felt like we've been going through one.
You feel like with your mask and everything, when you go to the grocery store, you feel like you're in it.
Yeah, but I don't know if you guys have seen the photos of, like, the Louvre or the Vatican when everyone was in lockdown. It's pretty apocalyptic looking. But maybe you guys would have a better idea than what either one of us came up with, and it'd be pretty cool to see what your perspectives and ideas are, and maybe we'll steal them.
Yep. So, these movies are always very, very interesting to me, but we're also talking about... We know a lot of these movies aren't always accessible to you guys, and quarantine, it grates on your nerves and your mind.
Yeah.
So I know movies are a way to escape, but so are books. So, I mean, you can't always sit down for a movie. It can get a little old watching the same movies over and over, and if you can't access these, then we're going to start reviewing some books as well. And have those on a different day, like once a month. We are going to try to find some that are very, very easily accessible and preferably free to get. So you guys can read along with us. When we find the ones that we're going to read, we're going to post them and let you guys know when we're going to be coming out with the review for it. So y'all can read along with us if you would like.
Yeah.
And if you have any suggestions or anything on books that are horror-based, then let us know so we can look into them.
Yeah, just please try and keep them either free or very low cost, because just in general, despite everything going on, not everybody has the means to access either the movies we watch or even has the money to pay for it. So we just want to have a different medium that's a lot more accessible for everyone. Like, I know I like using library apps or Amazon, the Prime books, so we're going to try and have something along those lines.
I'm obsessed with Kindle Unlimited.
Well, that costs money.
I know. But it is, compared to a lot of other things, it's not too much.
Yeah.
It's like $10 a month. And it really is unlimited. Like, you can have up to 10 books at a time sitting in your queue. And when you read those, you can take as long as you want with them. When you are done with them, you can send them back and get more to replace them. And you can do that as many times as you want in a month. Like, they don't limit it at all. It really is unlimited.
And then there's the Prime reading. And then the library app that I use is called Libby, Libby. If you have a library book, if you have a library card, that's all you need. You just download the app, input your library card. Now, your library does have to be connected to Libby, but the majority of libraries nowadays are, and it's so easy. You can borrow as many books as you want, but you have like the 2-week turnaround time, just like you would with a regular library book. And what I do, the majority of the books you can do this with, but not all. I like to transfer it over to my Kindle, and that's how I read the book. And then whenever I return the loan, it just removes the book from my library. But yeah.
So let us know if you guys have any other suggestions or anything for movies or books.
Yeah.
Next week we will continue with 28 Weeks Later. We are getting to your request, Brady. We promise. We just wanted to know what happened in the first movie first.
Yeah, we wanted our baseline so that way we can judge the second movie and be like, is it better or is it worse? Or is it the same?
It is all about the judgment.
Yes. Especially with your cup right now.
So, thank you guys for joining us again, and until next time, stay safe and stay spoopy.
Bye.